what I do for a living is I'm a sales effectiveness coach, but I'm also an active VP of sales and marketing. So what that means is I talk about all the things people should do, and then I do it.
Nice.
So our company is growing very fast, and I'm very proud of that. I've had experience from Xerox. I grew up at Xerox. I was there for 17 years. I learned all about selling from Xerox. Those of you who know Xerox, you hear the stories about selling, right? Structure, process, data, which I'm going to talk about today. But I've also worked for small startups. I've worked for middle-sized companies. But the other thing I do, I get to go out and meet with companies from all industries, all walks of life, and I get to interview the CEOs, the owners, the VPs of sales, and I get to ask them that question, what's going on in your business that's working and what's not working, and how can we help you? Because at the core of what we do, we sell CRM systems. But the CRM system is no magic. I don't recommend any of you go out and buy a CRM system tomorrow and hope that it's going to be magic, and all of a sudden business starts pouring in. It doesn't work that way. It's about business process, and Wendy talked about that earlier. Business process, doing things more efficiently and effectively, then using your tools to make life easier. That's what we do for a living. I keep forgetting how to clicker. Okay, anybody heard of this? The fourth industrial revolution. So this author here, Klaus Schwab, has written this paper, and it's been studied by most world leaders about what is going on right now in the world and what should we do about it. There's massive change happening in every industry and every country. There's political change, there's industrial change and corporate change, and you name it, things are changing, and the speed of change is increasing. So, one of the four industrial revolutions, the first one is the steam locomotive. So that invention revolutionized the way we transported heavy goods across the country, whether it be in the US or in Canada. And at that time, if you were given an opportunity to go into business with a friend, and your friend said, hey, let's start a horseshoeing business, or let's get into the railroad business, how many of you, show of hands, would pick the horseshoeing business? Some of us might, because we have the past history at our disposal, right? So our decision, no one raised their hands, because you're not going to go into the business shoeing horses when that's about to come into the world, or it's in the world. So how many, show of hands, would be in the railroad business? Everybody, right? I would. Billionaire, or not billionaires. Back then, if you were a thousandaire, you were a millionaire. So if you had $1,000, you were very rich. So the steam locomotive, and eventually the railroads, opened up business and commerce across Canada and the US and all over the world. At that time, people didn't know what was about to happen. The people who took risks and said, I'm going to get into this, I can see it, they're the ones that succeeded. Okay? The next one was the electrical and the combustion engine. So between 1870 and 1940. So when electricity, did you know most major companies had a vice president of electricity?
No.
It was that important that they had someone in charge to make sure that electrical power was always maintained for their company. That role doesn't exist anymore. The utility companies do that for us. This is a picture of a corner in New York City in 1905.
Wow.
If you look really closely, you'll see streetcars.
Yeah.
So those are electric streetcars, and they are surrounded by horses. So if you look, I'll stand in here, horse and buggy, horse and buggy, horse and buggy, streetcar, horse and buggy, horse and buggy. Can you see two technologies colliding? At that time, 25% of the US's food production was to feed the horses. There were thousands of jobs, picking up horse poop everywhere. All kinds of work to do that. So that was the way the world was. Look at what it looked like a short 20 years later. Same corner, 20 years later. Can anybody see a horse?
No.
All those poop pickers are out of work.
Still streetcars.
But 20 years. Now 20 years is a long time. But things are speeding up for us. All right, the next one was the invention of the computer, the CPU, the processing unit, central processing unit, the computer. And the computer was able to allow us to analyze data and do things faster, right? Now, when I went to school, we had this green screen computer in class, and I think we wrote funny code to make it write lines across the screen. That's about all I ever did with it. But our kids go to school today, and the computing power they have in their pocket is 100 times what we were using in school. So this really revolutionized the way work is performed. And I'm not from Microsoft, but Microsoft was very instrumental. Their vision was to put a PC on everybody's desk. Vision realized. Vision realized. All right, here's where we are now, the fourth industrial revolution, cloud and data. What this is doing is this is introducing a term called disruption. Has anybody heard of a company called Uber? Whoever thought a piece of technology would revolutionize how you take a cab? It's not even a cab, how you get a ride somewhere. So nobody saw that coming. And that's continuing to happen. But if you study Uber and what they did, it's at the heart of information. We call information data, but it's information. So the information Uber said was a human being would like a ride somewhere. How can we make that experience easy? So you know what they did? They put the customer at the center of their business model. And they leveraged data to make it happen. Technology enabled it. So all over the place we're seeing these disruptive companies coming through. Now, a lot of them are coming out of university. You got these young people, hopefully my kids, they can keep me safe in my retirement. But the kids are coming out of school because they understand this. The kids in school today, in university today, they grew up with technology. They understand it. They're not afraid of it. So what do we need to do? Understand what's really happening. So every 2 days, we create as much information as we did from the beginning of time until 2003. Think about that for a second. Every 2 days, we create as much information as we did from the beginning of time until 2003. So what's today, Tuesday? So by Thursday, the amount of information we would have created will be equal to, I don't know how many years that is, but thousands of years, I guess. Isn't that crazy? Next one, over 90% of all the data in the world was created in the past 2 years.
That's the one I like. It's astounding.
That's crazy. What does the future look like?
Fake news.
Yeah, but
That was Trump,
data,
though.
videos and all kinds of stuff. I was watching while we were listening to Wendy this morning, and everyone's on their phone and
Yep.
sending things, and we're moving data around constantly. Every minute we send 204 million emails, generate 1.8 million Facebook likes, and send 278,000 tweets. And then there's all the other things that are out there. These are just 3 things. Some days I feel like I have 204 emails in my inbox. You? It's crazy.
Yes.
Okay.
That was loud.
So the opportunity, and it was talked about this morning, is about data. And my question is, are you ready? So show of hands, do you feel as a brokerage or an independent broker, you're on top of this? Show of hands if you do feel you're on top of this and you've got it figured out. I didn't think so. So, let me tell you this. You don't have to look like these guys to succeed. Anybody remember these guys from the movie?
Yeah.
Revenge of the Nerds? It's a funny movie.
Yeah.
These guys took over the world. Look at Bill Gates. He's the biggest nerd ever, and he's like the richest man. I think he's just been passed richest man in the world by the Amazon fellow. But anyway, so you don't have to be like these guys to leverage the technology to be successful. All right, so what you're going to learn. How to use data to win more business and keep what you already have. How to generate more sales-ready leads using the tools that you have. And how to take soft leads, nurture them to convert them into customers on autopilot. So there's a lot of things I can talk about. I chose to pick about lead generation along with managing the customer data to keep your customers. But I'm going to focus on lead generation mostly today. So the first thing is, what tools do you use to manage your business today? So just shout them out. What technology tools do you use today to manage your business?
Our broker management
VMS.
system.
I've heard of VMS. Outlook. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Rating.
Telephony?
Which one?
VoIP?
What? Yeah, voice over IP phone systems. CMS, yeah.
Rating software.
Rating software. Probably keep going, man, there's so many things. Okay, so the point is, there's quite a few things out there that you already have in place today to manage your business in the new digital way. So you don't have to run out and reinvent the wheel in most cases. It's just taking what you already have and being more efficient with it. Does anybody remember that device?
Yes.
Does anybody still have one? So I remember, I would not give up my I love the BlackBerry. I did not see value, and I'm a technology guy, I did not see value in having this iPhone thing that allowed me to go on the internet. If it allowed me to send an email, if it allowed me to have a telephone conversation, that was enough technology advancement for me, and I'm not stuck to my office. That was beautiful. But then this thing came out, and I fought it. I didn't see the value. And how am I going to type an email on that instead of having a proper keyboard? How am I going to do that? Now I talk to my phone while I'm driving. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. While I'm parked safely on the side of the road, I need insurance. Okay. A lot of you, I was looking around to see what technology people are using, and most people are using smartphones. I didn't actually see anything other than a smartphone here. So a smartphone, have you noticed, for those of you who have an iPhone, I have an iPhone, so I know this happens on an iPhone. I park my car, and somehow it tells me where I parked my car. Has anyone experienced that yet?
Yeah.
That's called artificial intelligence. So how it works is the iPhone has a GPS locator in it. If you turn it on, this will start happening. Park your car, you walk away, and it's tracking where you're going. And then it says, your car is parked here. Now you know where your car is. I didn't ask it to do that. I didn't go on training to learn how to locate my car like we used to do. AI says, hey, if he parks there, and then he walks there, let's use this technology and tell him where he has to go back to. That's artificial intelligence, based on data. GPS coordination, that type of thing. Very powerful stuff. Which social tools do you use? Shout out. Facebook? Google?
Reddit.
LinkedIn.
LinkedIn? Did you know Microsoft bought LinkedIn? Like your Twitter? So Microsoft bought LinkedIn about 1.5 years ago. It took a long time to get through the courts because Salesforce tried to stop it, but it went through and Microsoft owns it now. So every company I go to is trying to figure out how to use these social tools. Do not feel bad if you haven't figured it out. I'll get into it more in a minute, but it's all about relationship. I think if I was to sit down with each one of you, no matter when you started becoming a broker, everyone would probably say, as a broker, my value to my clients is the relationship that I build with my client. That's your differentiator. In my mind, that's your differentiator between me as a consumer buying insurance from the bank or somebody else. You offer me thought leadership and advice, maybe even proactively. So I have this relationship. In fact, all my insurance is bought through a broker. My wife handles it all. I can't remember who it is, but it's all through a broker. And he gets back to her quickly. He emails her, boom, he's back in 2 minutes most days. It's amazing. So we'll never go anywhere else because of the service we're getting. Can I get a cheaper rate somewhere else? Maybe. But you know what? People value things, and you have to focus on that. And I'm not telling you anything you don't already know. Really quickly, a plug for us. So we are a CRM partner. We implement CRM for customers, and that's what we do. But I'm not here to talk a lot about that today. I want to talk about 3 sales models: inbound lead generation, outbound business development, and relationship selling. So these are the 3 main things that we need to do to grow and maintain our business. But there's 3 statistics that I want to share. The first one is that the buying process has changed. It's not is changing, it has changed. The way people buy things has changed, and man, has it changed dramatically. The next one is 50% of leads. So if you're fortunate enough to actually get a lead from somewhere, the statistics across all industries are that 50% of the leads are mismanaged.
Wow.
And the last one is lead nurture. So if you find a way to digitally nurture leads, you can drive a lot more sales at much less cost. And we're living proof. Our company, this is what we do. Okay, the first fact. So today's buyers can be anywhere from 60% to 90% of the way through buying whatever they're buying before they feel comfortable enough to reach out to a human being. So those of us that have been in business for 20 years plus, that hurts, right? We build relationships with people. We expect them to call us back when they need insurance, in your case. We expect it. Doesn't happen. We've done some work with insurance brokers. One fellow said he had a customer for years and years and years and years, and he realized he hadn't talked to him for a few years. A few years.
Wow.
Called him back and said, "Hey, Charlie, how's it going?" He says, "Great. Just want to catch up, see how you're doing." He said, "Yeah, I'm doing well. I just got promoted." He worked for Cisco. Just got promoted, moved into a new house, and he got his insurance through the bank, not through him. That hurt. My boss I was with at the time said, "What's his name?" And he told him his name, and he went on to LinkedIn, put in his name, and record came up. And he said, "Oh, look at that. You can see right here when he changed jobs." So there was a trigger event captured digitally in LinkedIn that could have let him know that one of his best customers has experienced a life event that could cause him to want to change his insurance. But he wasn't connected at all. So you know what he was doing? He was door knocking. He was knocking on doors, hanging out flyers and brochures. When I started at Xerox, that's what I used to do. I used to go door to door. I've been in sales for 20 years, and the last door to door call I did was, I can't even remember when it was, probably 18 years ago. So that's that story. Okay, I do a lot of sales, consulting and selling to businesses, B2B businesses. Do any of you sell insurance to companies as well as people? Show of hands. So B2B model. So this comes from the B2B model, but what's shifting is we always used to talk about, well, there's B2B, business to business selling, and then there's B2C, business to consumer selling. What's happening is those worlds are blending. And in the B2B world, we've leveraged data for years. I was at Xerox, I left 10 years ago, so I was there for almost 17 years, so a long time ago. And we used to leverage data to focus where we were selling way back then. So the big corporate companies have been doing this for a while. One of the reasons why they've been doing it is because they have money, budget, resources to do it. So we were doing that. So here's the process I want you to understand. So the first 3 steps in a company, or even a person buying something, one last point on B2B to B2C. B2B and B2C, there's one common thing about them, is people. The people are at the heart of both of those models. So they're calling it H to H selling, human to human. Because if you're a human being, which all of us are, I think, if you're a human being, you are buying something. How many of you will buy something online this year for Christmas presents? So I ordered one of those Google, I can't tell Microsoft this, but I ordered one of those Google Home devices for my son, and I bought it from bestbuy.ca, got it delivered, it came in 2 days ago. I'm good. So when you're shopping for something as a human being, you're shopping for something and then you're actually doing the transaction online. And there's people in here from, I think, the millennial age up to other generations, right? All of us are doing the same thing. Isn't that interesting? 5 years ago, if I would have said, how many of you plan to buy a present for Christmas online? I might see a couple of people put hands up. Now it's common, we're comfortable, we're doing it. Okay, so the first thing that happens in a company or with a person, something happens. There's some kind of a symptom. The symptom turns into pain or opportunity. That turns into a plan, and then they start researching for solutions. So if you can intercept your customer, whether it be a corporate or a private citizen, at any of these 3 phases, you have an opportunity to influence what they do. If you wait until the bottom part, research solutions, research suppliers, in corporate world they do the RFPs, RFIs, direct to consumer, they're just asking you for a quote. They select who they're going to buy from, they negotiate terms, then they buy. Over the years in big companies, we've been teaching our salespeople professional sales skills. These are professional sales skills that I'm all certified in. BANT, Sandler, SPIN, target account selling, and challenger sale. So the first one, BANT, if you're using BANT, it stands for budget, authority, need, and time frame. You're only addressing that bottom part of the funnel. So the customer says, I need a quote. And you say, what do you need? And they say, I just need a price for this, please. And you know they're shopping it around. You're at the very bottom of the process. You have almost no capability to influence what they do or even differentiate. You can try, and we should do that. The better way to do it is maybe use Sandler sales. Sandler sales gets at the customer before they've asked for a quote. They're still not sure what they're gonna do. Spin selling stands for situation, problem, implication, need. Spin selling addresses the whole bottom part of the funnel. So they're looking for solutions to a problem, they're not sure what to get yet. The next one is called TAS, target account selling, or like a solution selling model. So when a company or a person has some kind of a pain or a symptom, like the guy who changed jobs in my example earlier, you can influence what they do if you have the data to know when to intercept. Last but not least is called the Challenger Sale. It's a great book. You can order it on Amazon and get it delivered right to your house. Or you can go to Chapters and pick it up on the way home. I still go to Chapters and buy books. So what Challenger Sale does is it says, hey, Mr. Customer or Mrs. Customer, based on my knowledge of you as a person or as a company, I believe you're going to have this problem, or you do have this problem. Here's what I think you should do about it. That's thought leadership. That's giving them advice on something they don't already know they have a problem, and that's called Challenger Sale. So I just saved you $32. You don't need to go buy the book. That's it. There's a lot more in it there, but that's basically it. There's one problem with this, though. When I was at Xerox, we spent hundreds of thousands of dollars training all of our salespeople. And it was good because I used to go, remember, knocking on doors, and I used to meet with customers and do presentations. It made sense to invest in me, the person, because I'm the only point at that time to get in front of a customer. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have all that stuff, but we do now. So the problem is, the customer can be 60 to 90% of the way through their process of buying and never want to talk to you. The problem is magnified because the millennial generation, how old do you think millennials are?
1983.
Right, so they're like in their 30s, late, mid-30s now. I think it's 37, would that be 37, 35, 37? 35. 35 years old. Think about what you were doing when you were 35 years old. These people own companies. They have money. They have risk, which is perfect for you. But their behaviors are very different than us. The loyalty doesn't exist for them, okay? So as they continue to come up the curve, we have to adjust and put our customer at the center and figure out what do they want, and then put the model in place so they buy from us. So earlier, Wendy talked about customer journey. So it's really understanding your customer journey. Think about it. Imagine being a fly on the wall when the founders of Uber were sitting in a room and said, I know what, why don't we come up with an app? And then if people want a cab, instead of taking a cab, they'll just put in the app and say they want a cab, but a cab won't come. Private citizens will pull up because they're going that way anyway. And they'll pull up, they'll get in the car, the transaction will be all done automatically, and then off you go. I would have said, that's crazy. I would never get in that car. What if he kills me or something? Or my wife still won't get in an Uber car. But
Yep, that's me.
right? So, but imagine them sitting down and doing that. That's disruption. But that's the kind of thing that's going on. But they had to understand what are the pain points somebody has when in a cab. And you could rattle off a whole bunch, I'm sure. They've solved most of those. I love taking an Uber because I get in the cab. I know who's coming before they're here. You can see their picture, you can see their profile, you can see customer ratings. And if I don't like the person, I can bail. Pretty awesome. When the person shows up, I get in, I sit down, have a chit chat. I show up at my location, I say, thanks very much, Charlie, and off I go. I'm not digging for my wallet in the middle of a busy intersection where everyone's zipping by and honking their horn. None of that. Just out, go. Customer journey is the secret. Okay, fact number 2. So that was the buying process has changed. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts they want to ask at this point on that? Well, I'll do a bit of a Q&A at the end as well.
Reminds me of our business.
It does.
We're
doesn't it?
much in the pain management right now and trying to put the customers on the books. It's too hard.
It is, and I remember we did some work about 2 years ago, interviewing some insurance brokers across Canada. They were insurance brokers, some of them did financial planning as well. And, yeah, and the one fellow we found out west who was killing it every year had a small army of people managing the touch points with his customer. Right? So you know the old birthday thing, send a note to them on their birthday. Why is that so prevalent in your industry? It's because it's a data point that's easy to act on, right? You have it, you have the data point, you know, I'm July 19th, so if you want to send me something on my birthday, there you go. July 19th, there's a date. What should I do? Send them a birthday wish. Easy to do, right? Is it effective? I don't know, only you can answer that. So what he did is he said, what are the other touch points I need to make sure that I'm keeping up on with my existing client base? And when you start analyzing that, there's tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of them. Why? Because of the data slide I said. There's stuff about your customer on the web and that it would blow you away. Now in the US it's even better. Their freedom of information is much more pronounced. Yeah, but up here it's tighter. Doesn't matter. All of you are competing for the same business. The banks are competing for the business. You're under attack, right? You're under attack, literally. Now the problem is the banks have big budgets and big money. And when we interviewed this fellow 2 years ago, we were trying to help them put a solution in place. You know what the problem was? He was one person running a brokerage, I guess, with other people. They don't have the capital. They don't have the know-how. They don't have the time to put this system in place. So in my mind, it's about getting together, it's about being one, and the numbers that you have are massive. You can fight the banks. I don't know if you're fighting the banks or not, but you can together succeed. Divided, you won't, in my mind. And I'm not sure if I should say that, but that's what I think. Yes?
You said that now clients have already done the top part of the funnel. They're basically coming to you when they have chosen the vendor. They have chosen you as the vendor, but the client thinks they've made the right decisions, but they didn't. Is it at this point, are you supposed to be consulted? Are you supposed to say, hey? Or is it that before, are we supposed to provide as much information to the client through other means so that they can, you know, make that research on their own? Because a lot of clients get stubborn when you tell them, you made the wrong decision, I'm not the right vendor for you.
Yeah, that's a good question. So a couple things inside of that. So the first one is they've come to you for a quote, and you feel like you may not have an opportunity to differentiate, but you need to differentiate, right? So you need to be able to ask them a couple of questions that are the reasons why they need the insurance. And a lot of times it's not, so I've always heard this phrase, buying insurance is a grudge buy. Does that resonate with anybody?
Yeah.
Because I have to have it.
Yeah.
But since I have to have it, why don't I make the most informed decision? Right? Because the day that I have to make a claim is the day that I wish I would have listened to my broker and bought the right thing. So put your customer in that position. So we're just renovating, I'm doing a massive renovation on a house right now in Waterdown. We're moving in actually next week finally. And I ended up putting one of those backflow valves in the drain. My insurance person never told me that, but my contractor said, put it in and then you'll get a break on your insurance. So what if my broker, which I like by the way, remember, said, oh Rob, so you need insurance on your new house, wonderful, what are you doing, are you renovating at all? I said, yes I am. Here's my document on the 16 things you should think about, right, when you're renovating. Backflow valve, blah, 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 okay? If he did that for me, I would never leave that guy. He could charge me 10% more, 20% more. There's a limit to what people will pay. The number is about 10%, by the way. But the value, so, I think I went off there a little bit, but, so the question is, what would you do? Differentiate. So, the common denominator of all sales is someone's already gone through the process and they've decided what they want and their shopping price. They still need to know features, their shopping price. But people will still listen to you if you differentiate in a professional way. Never tell them that they've made a bad decision because they've gone through their research, however they've done it, and say, look, go through, why do you need the insurance? What are you hoping to get out of this, or whatever it is? And then through that, differentiate. Have the differentiation points ready, why they would buy from you versus anybody else. If you don't have the things in place like I just talked about, that wouldn't be too hard to put together. When buying a new house, these are the 16 things. When having a new baby, these are the 16 things. When you're married, just getting married, these are the 16 things, right? And so, and I'm sure a lot of you do a lot of that stuff, but just formalize it. Okay, 50% of leads are mismanaged. Okay, question. How good are you at generating leads digitally?
Terrible.
Terrible. Anybody good at it? You're not alone. Not even in the insurance world, even in other verticals. Watch this. So we've been doing an ongoing test and going to companies' websites of all industries all across Canada. And we've been submitting a lead. So if they sell coffee cups, we send in a lead, we go to their website, we fill in their form or whatever they have there, say, I need 1,000 coffee cups, please call me for a quote. Guess what happens?
Nothing. Nothing.
Wow.
Yep.
Half. Never, ever, ever get back to us. And I'm sure you have a story too. Maybe if you're in the renovation game, you're looking for things all the time online and you're asking them to call. A lot don't. Of the ones that got back to us, 75% took more than 1 hour. The other thing in this new world that we're in is speed. Okay? So if you are in this meeting today, who's responding to your customers that reach out to you today? And if you haven't figured that out, that's a really good place to start. Speed, speed, speed. It's important. And I know a lot of us don't like that, but that's what's happening. We have leads come in to our website, and our team, 5 minutes max, they're allowed. If they go over 5 minutes, I get upset with them. So speed is important. Now, 10 years ago, we would have said, if you call someone back in less than 5 minutes, you're going to scare the bejeebers out of them. Like, that's spooky. Not anymore. You expect it. I had a furnace go out on a Sunday, and I needed to get someone out to fix it. So I went online. I went to Google, and I Googled furnace repair guys, and I found a website, and there was nothing, no way. I submitted a form, and they said, we'll get back to you on business hours. And then I went to another one, and they had a live chat on their website. So I clicked it, and I started chatting with somebody. I don't know where, they're probably in some other country, but I was chatting with this nice person, and they said, I booked an appointment for you. They'll be out at 8 o'clock Monday morning. Done. Check it off my list. I feel good now. They were responsive. So being responsive is the next thing you can do. You don't need to go buy an expensive CRM system. You don't need to go and buy anything. Just find a way to be responsive to your customers. That guy that I told you about, my broker, that's the number one thing I like about him. Because I want to, so I'm at work, or my wife's at work, and we have a question about insurance. We fire it off, boom, he's right back. Almost every time. It's unbelievable. So I would not leave him because of fear of not having that level of service. Okay? Next thing, 82% never tried a second time. So what we do is we ignore the ones that actually got back to us to see if they're going to try again. And they don't. 82% never tried. And remember, I was a real lead, right, as far as they were concerned. I was a real lead with what I said. I wasn't, hey, can you send me some brochures about insurance? That's the kiss of death for any salesperson. Send me a brochure on something. Next one. 4-day average response. So most of them on average took 4 days. Depending on what I'm buying, I've already bought it. Right? Or I forgot what I wanted in the first place. And the problem is two things. And I should reverse those two. Process and tools. So the process you can fix tomorrow. How many of you have someone who calls your phone number, answer the phone from, during business hours? Raise the hands. Anybody?
Like
Okay,
a
so
live
you-
receptionist, you mean?
Yeah, like a receptionist. Right? So we've thought through, hey, if someone calls us, let's make sure we answer the phone. Guess what? People don't pick up the phone and call anymore. The
Yeah.
people we're going after, they're on the web. So just take that person who answers the phone and have them respond to the web inquiries. Now, the web inquiries are going to be garbage. A lot of them are going to be garbage. Probably 95% of them are not going to amount to anything. But every once in a while, you get one of those nuggets come in, and that's what you're doing it for. the shift will be that will get better and better and better. As all of us do business that way, we expect to get a hold of you through your electronic communications. If someone says, call me, I hate it. I absolutely hate it. And I'm 47. Imagine the millennials that are 35 and down, right? One of the guys I speak with sometimes, his name's Daryl Keyser. He speaks to insurance, actually. You probably met him before at some event. But he talks about social media, and he talks about web and all that stuff. He's a millennial. He's 34, I think. He's got 4 kids. He's got a cottage up north. He's got a nice big house. He bought a pair of glasses while he was sitting in bed one Sunday morning. He has his laptop. I guess he keeps it next to his bed at night. Opens it up, goes on a website, picks the frames that he wants. It takes a picture of his face, puts the frames on his face, on the pictures. It goes, hey honey, what do you think of that? Does that look good? He goes, yeah, that looks good. Great. Buy. 3 days later, they show up. Isn't that cool? So, things are changing. Electronic communication is the key. So, when you are fortunate enough to receive a lead, you want to capture who they are. So you want to capture their name, their email address, phone number, any information that is important about them. Now, the less information they give, the more unlikely they're a real lead. But you want to record that person if you can, so you can put them on a bit of a drip campaign, a nurture. Because that's a human being that's reached out to you for some reason. And if they're willing to give you their contact information, that's gold. You know that thing called CASL, Canadian Anti-Spam Law? We just can't arbitrarily now go out and blast people electronically, which hurts us in Canada a little bit. So this is a strategy. So you have a form, and if you have a WordPress website, it's really easy to do. So you have a form on your website that has the little permission clause on the bottom for CASL. They give you their information, bang, you've got a potential customer. You don't have a customer. You have a right to market and nurture to that person, okay? So then you qualify. What are they? Are they ready now, or are they ready later? If they're ready now, they're probably asking you things like, I need a quote. I need a quote. So now you get to differentiate. You have it ready to go, okay? And then if they're ready later, you put them into a nurture. Don't throw that contact information away. It's valuable. Make sure it's CASL okay, and then store it. Now, if you don't have a CRM system, depending on how big your firm is, I always say a spreadsheet's a wonderful thing, right? So if you don't have the budget, at least track it that way. Have a nice spreadsheet. There's some free tools online you can get that will help you track that kind of thing too. But keep a record of all these things so that you can market to them electronically. Then assign it to somebody. Give it to a salesperson to run after, or give it to your marketing person, or if you wear many hats and you're the marketer, the salesperson, and everything else, then give it to you and put it in the right bucket. Nurture that person until they buy. And then you convert them to a paying customer. So the concept is attract them, engage, and convert. So the attract part, I didn't talk a lot about the attract part today. Daryl actually talks about that stuff, but attract is simply this. If people are online trying to make a decision on what to buy and going through those stages of the buying process, you have to take any material you would typically use when you're face-to-face, turn that into digital content, little videos, little PDFs, things like that. Push it out through your social channels that a lot of you said you have, like Facebook, like Twitter, like YouTube. YouTube's one of our best lead generating tools for us. Put the content out there so that people find it. It's thought leadership. Maybe it's an article or a blog post that says, when you're renovating a new home, these are the 16 things you should consider. And they read through it. Maybe only give them the 2 things. These are the 2 out of the 16 things you should do. If you want to hear 14 others that are even more important than the 2 I'm sharing, click here. Click, whoop, they're on your website. If you want the full report, give me your first name, last name, email address at a minimum, and then a bunch of other stuff. Now they download it because they want it. They get it. It comes in. You've captured their information. They said yes to CASL because they want that 16-thing report. Boom, done. So what did you do? You took a day out of your life to think through what one thing can I actually create content-wise and set this process up so that I can capture leads like honey, okay? And those things are more important than going on sales calls now. I can knock all day long. I used to measure my salespeople at Xerox. How many calls did you do today? You know, how many calls did you do a month? We had a mandatory 60 face-to-face visit a month. And if you didn't hit it 3 months in a row, you were terminated at Xerox. Not anymore. We don't do that anymore. Okay. The conversion process is really capture who they are. That's the most important for you. Qualify what they are, assign it to the right resource, nurture it, and convert. The most important thing, the one thing you have in your control with no excuse, is speed. The time it comes in to the time you respond is the most critical data point you have, and you have full control over that. My contractor I'm working with now, he gets leads coming in through his website. He's a Baumler approved, you know Baumler, Brian Baumler, the construction guy? Baumler approved guy. And he has leads coming in his website, and he responds to them himself. But he's busy. He might be sanding the floor, and his phone's ringing, and he's just sanding the floor. And I said, give it to your wife to answer. She's at home with the kids, but give it to your wife at least, so someone responds quickly. He did that. He's getting all kinds of business. And all he did differently was respond faster. Quick story about Windows. I know it's not your industry, but what's happening in other industries is food for thought for us, right, in insurance. So, customer number one, customer needs to buy Windows. This was a sales guy in our office. He went to Google, and he found a website called homestars.com. Homestars charges the company a lead fee. So Homestars has done all the right SEO and ABO and all the other initials to get traffic to the website. And then these vendors, these contractors, pay for that service when they get a lead, okay? Remember that for a second. Okay, finds Homestars. He finds a vendor on there that he likes, and he fills in their form for a lead or for a quote. 3 days go by, no one ever responds. He paid for this lead. Like, he's paying for this service. So he called them instead on the phone, and he was promised that someone who would do the quote would call him back. Never heard from anybody for 2 days, so he went back to Homestars and bought from somebody else, same day. So that vendor was either really busy or just not on the ball. So at the center of this model, so here's the practical stuff now. So if you weren't taking notes before, this is where you want to take notes. So at the center of what you want is some technology that will allow you to have a list of all of your either companies if you're in corporate sales or business sales, or your contacts with the people you sell to. So you want a record of all that stuff, and it should not, don't rely on your BMS system. The BMS system is like, we were having a discussion earlier, a BMS system in the corporate world, or in the, I gotta stop saying that. The BMS system in other industries than insurance, like Bell Canada is the example I used earlier. Bell Canada has a system called an ERP system, Enterprise Resource Planning. It is their data vault, and I mean vault. It is inflexible. It is nasty and gnarly. And it's like, the analogy I use is like a bank, okay? The bank stores all of your financial transactions in an ERP-like system. But one day they said, how do we make it easier for people to know their balance, to deposit money, to do all the things you do in banking? They said, why don't we come up with this little machine that you can walk up to and do your banking? It'll connect to the system so it knows what you have in that, but let's not let them in that system because of security breach. Let's give them this little thing here, and this will make it easy. And they did that, the banking machine. Then they said, oh, what if we put it on this new thing called the web? And it's a portal, a self-service. Now I go on the web and I self-service. And then they said, what if you put a check on the table and you take a picture of it and it deposits in the bank? So they focused on the customer and made it easy. But you know what didn't change? That stupid big system that's rigid and inflexible. It has to stay that way till the end of time. It has to. It has to be locked down like Fort Knox because of all this stuff you hear in the media about, you know, viruses and hacking and, you know, Robert Herjavec from Dragon's Den? His whole business is built on helping companies figure out how not to get hacked. Okay? So, it has to be that way. So at the center is some kind of a system that is easy to use, nimble, inexpensive, right? And it has your accounts, contacts, leads, opportunities, all the things you need. Now, take a look at your sales process and modify it where you need to. If you do that, you can manage your existing customers way better. If you do that, you can also get new customers way more effectively if you connect it to your digital presence. So you should have a record of your, so if you're only using Facebook, you don't have to use all this stuff, by the way. So if you've got Facebook, maybe you have so if you have these three, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter, you're pretty good, right? The other thing I would recommend is having a live chat on your website. If you don't have a blog, I think that is the most important thing for an insurance salesperson. I really do. Like, that's the thought leadership. Now, the other thing, a blog, is YouTube. So recording little videos. You've got, all of you have smartphones that record videos. Record your customer and how they prevented disaster by having a policy with you or through you. Okay, so there's all these kinds of things. Now, if you do that really well, you can invest in a marketing automation platform. All the marketing automation platform does is it puts, allows you to do emails, text messages, posting to social pages automatically. You can even set up a rule that says when I have a customer's policy that is expiring in 6 months, automatically send them this email with their specific information blown into the document, email it to them, and copy me in so I see it. You can set that up to go automatically. Manage the touch points without having an army of people doing it. Last but not least, connect to your BMS. I should put BMS there. But connect it to your BMS or other systems so you have one place to go, the round circle in the middle, to get access to anything. Remember, those systems are rigid. They're supposed to be rigid. Don't fight it. Have another system on the outside to do that. Marketing automation features, so email marketing, web tracking. You can actually track visitors to your website. So every time someone goes to your website, you can track their IP address. You can do lead scoring, nurture marketing. So these are all tools. I could talk about this for another hour, but these are all tools that can help you automate the nurturing of the people that didn't want to buy. Remember those leads? So if you get, magic happens and you get 2 leads every day after today, 90% of those leads aren't going to buy right now, but they're going to need insurance eventually. So you're managing the touch points. Most of you might have newsletters. You might have mailers you do, things like that. A marketing automation system can actually keep the touch points going with a person so they have you top of mind. Other tools, social listening. Social listening is kind of interesting. What it does is, let's say I'm on Facebook and I'm really upset that my insurance broker didn't tell me that I should have a backflow valve and that will reduce my insurance. Let's say I did that. Millennials love to put their whole life on social media. I don't, but that's what they do. So I type in, I wish my insurance broker would have told me about backflow valve, exclamation mark, send. Social listening can be programmed so that if someone says something you're listening for, it'll tell you who said it. So if you're listening for pain point words like insurance broker, maybe backflow valve, maybe that's a good one, I don't know. Whatever the words are, and you know what they are, most likely. So what you do is social listening, you program this, it's called sentiment. So you program that into the tool, and when any one of your social channels has that phrase pop up, it alerts you. You can automatically have it respond, or you can have you can manually respond. So the relationship that we all know, those that have been in the business for 20 plus years, we know relationship is the king of selling. That hasn't changed, guys. It hasn't changed. All those 4 industrial revolutions, trains and steam and electricity and combustion and the CPU, they're still humans at the heart of it all. And relationship is king. All the social tools have done has given us tools to make it easier to have a relationship with people without having to see them every day. I get vacation alert, or I get birthday alerts from Facebook every day. I can't even remember my wife's birthday, right? So it's helping me manage my relationship with the people I care about. That's what Facebook's doing for me in that small example. Oh, I didn't cover the other one. So social listing. Digital campaign manager is a way to set up campaigns that you want to do and manage it. Digital social posting. So you can send an email to somebody, you can send a text message to somebody, but the other way to communicate and market is posting to their social pages because you're connected. They've given you permission to connect with them in social channels. You can post things to them there. I met a real estate agent in Hamilton when I was looking for my house, and I said, "What CRM do you use?" He said, "I don't use one. I use Facebook. That's all he uses." And he just communicates with his customers. So he added me to Facebook, and that's where he communicated with me. He never emailed me, he never called me, he Facebooked me. Isn't that cool? Last but not least, I was sitting at this table earlier, data analytics. And I heard somebody say the word Power BI, which was music to my ears. So, part of the challenge with all this data that's out there is making sense of it all. And there's too much data. We can't do it as human beings. So you need to look to tools that will dissect and drill down in the data and tell you the story of your data. And I'm not supposed to talk about products, so I won't, but there's some really good products out there that are very inexpensive to help you do that. So putting this all together, I'm just about ready to wrap up, is on the left, somebody or a company is going through the process of wanting to buy something on the left. Typically now they go to search, they go online first. Then when they go on search, they'll find that post you put about the 16 things about a backflow valve. They'll find it, maybe you posted it on LinkedIn, maybe you have it on your blog, maybe you record a little video about it, but they find it. They read it and they say, hey, this is really good. I really want the rest of the 16 things. They end up at the website, right? They see it. You have a form. They fill in the form. They get their little 16 things. So all that is your WordPress is your website with a form on it, or your marketing automation tool can have a form, and then that data goes into CRM, and you have that person's contact information. So you want that happening day in, day out, day in, day out, collecting people with castle permission. And now you're building your customer list. Now they're not a paying customer, they're a potential customer. And then that's all tracked here. You've got your databases linked in, so you have a picture of expiry dates and other existing information to manage your existing base. If you don't increase your touch points with your existing base, they will leave. They'll find somebody else, they just will, okay? And then there's other tools like your email platform, and then touching on your sales process. Quick story about a car. Another sales guy in my office wanted to buy a car, needs a car, he's a buy now. He goes to 3 different websites, he fills in their form, 1 out of the 3 responded right away. He test drove and booked with the one, he bought his car. The second of the 3 called 2 days later. Too late. Okay, all of us have stories like this, so think through, put your customer at the middle, think about their journey. What experience are they having? How can you make their experience phenomenal? That's your differentiator right now. It's either that or it's price at the end. The lowest common denominator for selling is price. It doesn't need to be. So in summary, attract. So attract more business. Remember, I'm really focusing on lead generation today. But so attract, using blogs, YouTube, and other digital tools. Don't be afraid of it. You don't have to be a millennial to do this stuff. You're all using smartphones. You're not using Blackberries like that old one anymore. You've come a long way already. Just keep going. Number 2, engage. Engage with your base. If you have the fortunate opportunity to have a lead come in, treat it properly, no matter what the status is of it. And track it, record it, and nurture them. Last but not least, convert. So set up your systems so that you can convert more of those, and you will have success. When I was at Xerox years ago, we used to say you had to call a customer 7 times before you gave up. I think it's more like 12 now. And it's not calling, right? It's electronic communication. I get calls constantly on my cell phone, and I'm at the point now where if I don't know who it is, I don't answer anymore. Does anybody else do that? Yeah, so, right? Remember when you used to get flyers in the mail all the time, and you would open your mail over the garbage? You'd say, Bill, flyer. Bill. Customized, personalized flyer, looks pretty, garbage, you know, and that's what we did. So it's all about relationship and being good. Now, I put these in, you can take advantage of them if you want. Our website is crmdynamics.com. We have a lot of information for free there, videos and things that explain a lot of the stuff. We do have a lead assessment, so we will actually test those companies that want it, their website. So I won't tell you when, but if you want to do that, just go to this URL, and one of our team over the next month or so will randomly test your website and give you a report on what we found. And last but not least, if anybody wants to sit and talk about sales process, I could do that all day long. That's it. That's it.